Hello, this is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com, and today I'm talking with you about how you can boost your IQ by playing Words with Friends. And yes, Words with Friends is the same game that Alec Baldwin was playing in December 2011 when he got kicked off an American Airlines flight for refusing to stop playing before the plane took off from the ground. So what is this magic trick? What is it that you can do with Words with Friends that can help significantly boost your intelligence? Well, I'm going to back up a little bit and tell you about how I discovered Words with Friends, which was just this year. And I was surprised when I first played on the internet to find out it's basically the same game as Scrabble. And if you've ever played Scrabble, then you know what I'm talking about. This here is a game of Scrabble. It's a board game. It involves drawing some random letters. I've got quite an assortment here, which is going to be a challenging thing to play with. And you put the words on the board and you play with someone else. On the internet you can do pretty much the same thing, and it makes it fun because you can play with people that are a long way away. They don't need to be geographically in the same place with you when you're playing. When I first learned to play Scrabble, I was a young girl, and my grandmother loved the game. She loved it so much that she was pretty much an expert at it, in my estimation. She'd pretty much memorized all the 2- and 3-letter words from her Scrabble dictionary, and she could make moves so quickly it reminded me of someone playing chess in New York with those speed chess games, because she was really quick. But that's not what was so amazing about playing with my grandmother. And what I really want to share with you today is that my grandmother, who I called Mormor, which means mother's mother in Swedish, she would basically say, let's take a look at your letters. And so we'd show each other the letters that we had, and we could see over here, it looks like this person is all lined up to make a nice word with the 7 letters that they've drawn. Whereas in the case of something like this, which actually did happen to me quite a lot, where I have no vowels whatsoever and a very strange assortment of consonants, then my grandmother would say, oh, let's take a look at this and see what we can do. And in a cooperative fashion, she would then make suggestions about words that I could place on the board and use her time when normally she'd be deciding her next move to help me do something that would be best for me, even if it messed up what she was about to do herself. Also, she encouraged filling in this upper left-hand quadrant of the game, and to those of you that play the game, you understand this is a difficult corner to get up into because it requires ending words with the letters that are already on the board and making use of space that is not normally such an easy thing to think about. So what she was doing for me turns out to be teaching me cooperative strategies to game playing, which of course for any of you who have taken these kind of ideas into the real world, you already have probably jumped to the correct assumption where I'm going with this, that when you learn to cooperate with someone else, you're learning a skill that you can take into the world and that will help you succeed in many unpredictable ways. But what I think is especially interesting is I just saw results from a research study that was conducted in Dublin by neurological researchers that played a game with artificial life, and it was simulating neural development across generations. And they could control for all of the variables in this game-playing situation. They were able to determine that when they had life forms that were playing the games cooperatively, their intelligence developed tremendously. And we can just look to other social animals in the world, such as dolphins and elephants and humans, and see that the same thing is pretty much true for us as well. So that brings me right back to playing Words with Friends, and what you can do when you're playing this game, or Scrabble, is to make an offer to your other players. I hesitate to call them opponents because that seems to bring to mind more of that competition again. But if you're making suggestions to other players that you'd like to share with them, either a very challenging group of letters that you've just drawn and you're asking their help to place these letters somewhere, making use of a vowel, or if you're making an offer to them to help them place their letters. And even if you don't communicate in that fashion, you can just make the longest words possible, expanding to provide the other players in the game with better use of the board. And of course, this feeds right into my favorite question, how good can it get? Because when we start looking at life in ways that we can imagine, what can I do today to be more cooperative with my family, with my friends, with my coworkers, then we're definitely going to see how good it can get in the entire world. So until next time, this is Cynthia Sue Larson with RealityShifters.com asking you, how good can it